Somewhere towards the top of the short list of people I've been wanting to get on the On Friar podcast for a while now. Guess on my wish list, somewhere near the top of the list, Marty Caswell. We've been trying this for a little while, and looks like the stars finally aligned today. Marty was out in Peoria for a good little stretch, covering the Padres for Sporting Tribune, doing her usual work on YouTube as well. So excited to pick her thoughts and get her gut feeling on these Padres after spending some time around them. So very much looking forward to doing that. No Derek this week. He's enjoying a much deserved vacation. So we should be back with him next week. Thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Appreciate all they do for On Friar and for the NBC 7 sports team. If you want to get lunch, maybe catch a Padres spring training game, perhaps some NBA, NHL, whatever else is going on in the world of sports, OG's is the place to do it. Tons of TVs, locations around San Diego County, and of course, a great menu, constantly doing new specials, new menu items, and an awesome beer list, which I always appreciate. So thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Friar podcast brought to you by NBC 7. I am Darnay Tripp, and pleased to be joined by, there she is, Marty Caswell. After all this time, we finally get it done, Marty. Finally get it done. Very excited.
The shame. Darnay, I am so sorry. I want to go ahead and start by apologizing. You've been asking me. I've confirmed a couple of times, and I've confirmed that I would disappear for a while and something would happen. So thanks for being patient. It's an honor to be here. And let me start by apologizing in advance for the chaos, because listen, you're a professional. You have a professional, well-run podcast. You book professionals. You put, the Darren Smiths. They're on your show, and there's structure. It's quiet. It's an outline. I have Disney Channel. I have a cartoon. I have Pedialyte going on. So it's kind of nuts in my world. So
I get it. You're talking to a parent of 2-year-old twins.
I know.
I was kicked out of our house. Had to take the twins and our dog for a 2-hour walk today because Laura had a job interview.
Wow.
So I completely understand. So do what you got to do in the background, little ambient noise. Nobody minds that. Everybody's got chaotic lives. It is what it is. Right. People are listening to podcasts where they're cooking, they're driving, they're working out, there's stuff going on. So it's all good. Just happy to be in your presence, Marty. How you been?
I've been good. I was just thinking about that when you're talking about, having the twins and just the chaos of life. I've been good because when I went to spring training, when I went to Peoria, and I think I've gone for like 21 straight years in a professional capacity, that was a vacation for me. So although it was like a lot of work, I was able to go ahead and get away from like the everyday responsibilities, that distract you. So it was good. But no, I've been good. I'm waiting for the rain like everybody else in San Diego. It's been. Even though it's dark and stormy outside and rainy, it feels like spring because we're talking about baseball, and we have pitchers making, their first spring starts, and we had the triumphant debut of SDFC, which I'm sure which is why you booked me for the On Friar podcast. So it's good. We have NFL draft buzz, all the rumors. So this is a really, really fun time of year as a sports fan.
You tweeting about Manny Machado being at Snapdragon Stadium. It's like classic Marty Caswell. She is on it. Whatever Manny's up to, his every move, his every statement, Marty is on it. So I was glad to see that you were out there as well.
Yeah, that was cool. That's like my spring training practice, like breaking news. I'm sure Manny wants no part of the normal media that's going to pester him in pregame and in postgame. But no, that was a really cool moment. Darnay, you were there as well, right? In the
it was awesome.
Box? Awesome. I was sitting just to the right of the supporters section, which is so much fun. I brought my nephew August, who was 7 years old, and he was louder than everybody else. He's trying to steal flags. It was so much fun. I mean, I didn't grow up with soccer. I'm not a huge soccer fan. I don't know anything about soccer, but that's how it gets started. You think about the moments that cultivate you becoming a sports fan. For a kid like that, for a lot of kids, it starts with just being somewhere fun, like the environment. That was great. And that was cool with Manny coming out, the Manny chant. So that was a lot of fun.
Really, really cool. Yeah, good to see Manny out there, and just kind of whole pregame deal that they're doing. Nice to see that finally become reality. Good to see you out there. And just quickly update us. Are you doing some work for Sporting Tribune? I know you just posted a piece a couple days ago about the rotation. You chatted with Ruben Niebla. I checked out that interview today. Lots of insight from Ruben. So what should we be on the lookout for before we dive into this? I also saw you did a very interesting interview that I think it's hitting YouTube soon. So get us posted on that as well.
That's going to post later. So Sporting Tribune, they're kind enough to go ahead and bring me on. So you'll start seeing a lot of more of my work being populated there. Interviews, maybe some pregame stuff, postgame stuff, some of the fun things that I do when I'm at Petco Park, and not just with the Padres players, but also with the visiting. It's fun to get both perspective, both sides a lot. And of course, like opening day in a couple of weeks, Jerks and profiles on the other side with the Atlanta Braves, of course, right? So you'll see a lot of conversations happening on both sides. Some behind the scenes stuff. People love the behind the scenes.
Yes.
As Darren will tell you, I love press conferences, so I love them. I hate to miss them. So I'll try and bring some of that to you. And I'm glad you asked about what I have coming on. You'll see it on YouTube. I'm also going to write about it for the Tribune. But as you guys know, Darnay, Ted Lightner is officially retiring from broadcasting. I think his last home game at Viejas is going to be this Saturday, right? And then we'll see what happens in Las Vegas with San Diego State. But as long as I've been a sports fan, which has been since I was 11 years old, it's always been Ted Lightner, voice of the Padres. And he had the Chargers, now the Aztecs. So this is kind of it. So I'm getting some people together. It's not a busy time of year at all if you're a baseball manager. So Bruce Bochy, Black, former Padres managers, of course the great Trevor Hoffman, and my friend Darren Smith. We're all going to get to just get together and celebrate Ted on the way out and share some stories and wish him well, because he meant a lot to me. I know he does. San Diegans. For many of us, I mean, he has been the voice of San Diego sports. He did everything. So just you can be on the lookout for that.
Very, very cool and impressive that you could get all those schedules to line up, because that in and of itself, it's hard to get one person lined up for a podcast, much less like a dozen. So
yes,
so good on you for doing that. All right, let's dive into the Padres.
Okay,
you were out in Peoria.
Yes.
Just give me your 30,000-foot view on this team. I wanted like Marty's gut feeling on the Padres as it stands right now. What is your gut telling you?
Okay, my gut tells me that I'm going to change my mind every single day, but I'm not going to go ahead. I'm not going to overreact or underreact to a lot of things. The thing that jumped out at me, and it kind of started with FanFest when we had a chance to go ahead and speak to the players they brought out there, the Manny Machados and Tatis and Jackson Merrill. The health is such a big deal. And as remarkable as it is to think about what Luis Arias did, winning his third straight batting title, with 3 consecutive different teams, he did it with a busted up hand. And when you hear him talk about just like, watch out, you're really going to see a lot more from me this year, which you want, by the way. You want the guy, by the way, going into a free agent year, you want him to be healthy, but also like Manny Machado. I almost feel like you're getting the real Manny Machado back. Don't forget he had the surgery the previous offseason, and it's like he spent the entire of all of last year recovering from that. We spent so much time, on the radio show, and I'm sure you did as well on the podcast, talking about what's going on with Manny. What's it really going to take to get him going? And he did, towards the end, help carry them into the postseason. But I don't know we got the real Manny Machado this last year that you want. And of course, his contract's really kicking in. Tatis is another big one. He said that at FanFest that when I'm healthy and my head is in the right place, I'm the best player in baseball. And so, and that was kind of interesting that he said when my head's in the right place. And so when I was in Peoria, I cornered him in his locker. I'm like, what did you kind of mean by that? Because I wanted to elaborate more in that setting, but how press conferences go. And he just says that, just your focus has to be there, no outside distraction. So you're hopefully getting that version of Fernando. And you're hopefully getting a Fernando who, for the first time, got to really taste what postseason baseball feels like. Because of course in 2022 he was suspended and he was not part of the run to the NLCS. So my thing is health is such a big deal for this team, and if they can stay healthy and we have an expectation of what Jackson Merrill can be, I think this team could be a lot. I mean, they should be good, right? They still have a top 10 payroll. They have players making a ton of money, but I just think they could be better than you might think, given the consternation around their slow off season.
Yeah. It's interesting with Tatis, fewer distractions. How do you level that with joining Bad Bunny's agency?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know, but maybe we'll see Bad Bunny around. That'll be a lot of fun to see. That's something that is something else.
That would be. So that would be interesting. I mean, as you said, when his head is in the right place, we've seen how good he can be. Hopefully that doesn't cause any distractions. We don't want to see him at, too many shows and too many this and that, focus on baseball. I'm sure there's going to be some opportunities and some cool opportunities that present themselves. But, once opening day rolls around, hopefully it's, all business.
Yeah, I'm sure. But but Darnay, to your point on that, I mean, a couple of years ago, before the suspension, he was like the face of baseball, right? He was on the cover of MLB The Show. And I'm thinking about the baseball players who had national endorsements, right? I mean, Fernando had that endorsement with Gatorade, and he was like in rarefied air. I think Serena Williams had an endorsement. I forgot who it was from the NFL, but Tatis was hitting a level of attention that other baseball players were not getting, right? It's something that like a Mike Trout would only dream of. It's what Shohei Ohtani is going to make. But I just think that, the past couple of years has been a humbling experience, and maybe he's getting back to who he is as a person, the personality, and the player. All the talk of swagger that he wanted to bring into his game and celebration, that was back last year. And when he is that version, that player, that's the best version of Tatis. And so maybe adding in the Bad Bunny element is more of, I mean, how many players in the Padres can pull that off? That guy. That's it.
In baseball, period. In like the natural kind of partnership there, I don't think there's too many. And you're right. We did. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think Juan can dance like Fernando can. But to your point, we saw Tatis, like, especially September into the playoffs, like closer to peak Tatis. We saw Manny, like, once he kicked into gear in June, we saw like MVP caliber level Manny Machado. And so certainly the hope and the need for this team is for those guys to continue on that trajectory. Maybe it was the Tatis comment about him being like focused and what he said at FanFest. Was there anything in particular that you heard at Peoria? Like, what was the most interesting thing that you heard, or something that stuck in your head from your time in Peoria that you found particularly interesting or maybe important for this year's team? Is there anything that jumps out to you that really resonated with you from talking to the guys?
There's really not one thing. And I think what resonates is you don't really have that busy distraction that you had before, because in previous years, it had been about the possibility of Manny Machado being a free agent, right? And the ownership thing, I mean, that's a big deal. But the players, I mean, they talk about it a little bit, and that was not really a topic there. I think the Michael King conversation, the idea that he might get traded, he might not. I know we asked him about that during FanFest, and that seems to be put to bed. So I just think that the way these guys are handling it, King and Cease, who have both been traded in the recent past, and know how to deal with that distraction. I think that there's really not internal distractions has been very interesting. I hate using this phrase, which is why I'm going to use it. It's like a different tone. Like, these guys, they know that they mesh well. They know who their manager is. They know that the manager and the GM, they seem to like each other, and they get along. We may not know what it means to have John Seidler in charge, but as far as the chain of command on the baseball side, I think the players, there's a sense of stability. You have stability with the hitting coach, Victor Rodriguez.
Yeah.
If you're listening, if you're watching the On Friar podcast, and you should be, then you can maybe you can buy a house and not have to worry about renting, because I just think that there's a level of excitement that it's the same coaching staff. Because stability, you need to have stability, and I think that matters. It was calm. I mean, for what we do, you want a little bit of you want some buzz, right? You want a little bit of. You don't want chaos. I mean, you want.
Yeah.
But it was just okay. kind of boring.
It's mellow. It's good for it to
Mellow.
be mellow. There's been so many busy, like with the Tatis stuff. What was that in 2022?
Yeah.
And all these different things. It's been too eventful at times. And you also had like the Soul series and all the questions about that and how that was
Yes.
impacting.
The
And so, like,
WBC, the Soul
yes.
series. It's like it's calmed down. And I think you, Darvish, had talked about that, about, that he is going to be, I mean, he's so prepared as it is, right? He knows what it takes to go ahead and perform at the highest level. He's so disciplined, but you're not going to have the distractions of the previous year, the WBC, getting ready for WBC, all the players not knowing each other, not learning to play to each other, and having the personality problems. And then Korea, I mean, that took a toll on players. They had a blast. It was a bonding experience, but when they were struggling, it was so easy to go ahead and use that. Oh, that's the reason why they're having problems.
Yeah. Omar chiming in. Love Marty. She always asks the questions to players and coaches that I want answered. That's right. Nobody asks the hard questions like Marty Caswell.
Oh, yeah, sure. Manny loves the questions, right?
Gustavo, love the mashup. Should be more of a regular thing. I mean, I think players respect it, Marty. They don't always like it, but I know they respect it because somebody's got to do it, and you're the one that's not afraid to ruffle feathers if need be.
Well, I think I'm hoping, I'm trying to ask logical questions. That's all it is.
Yes, yeah. It never comes across as anything more than these are the questions that people want answered that should be answered. So good on you for doing that. You mentioned just kind of the vibe of the team. Mm-hmm. In the past, we didn't know that there are issues with Jay Stingler and AJ Preller. We didn't know that there are issues with Bob Melvin and AJ Preller until things kind of went south halfway through the season. Well, maybe there were some reports, but yeah.
I will tell you this. No, it wasn't like public consumption, because a lot of times when you do what we do behind the scenes, you're going to hear something, right? And you talk about it. Like I know Darren Smith had known. He was pretty aware of the rift with Bob Melvin and AJ Preller, and you hear stuff behind the scenes, and you lurk in corners, but when a team is winning, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
we
when
didn't go
things
into
go bad.
2023 thinking anything was wrong, and then things went terribly wrong in 2023. Now, things do seem different between Shildt and Preller. Even the Zoom between the two of those guys after the season, they were super chummy, and AJ wanted to give Mike a hug and all this stuff.
Right.
How confident are you that this is a real thing, and that like the good vibes and the culture that Shildt seemed to ingrain in this club a year ago can continue and is a real thing?
That's a really good question. Winning solves everything. I feel like last year at this time, Darnay, if you had had me on your podcast, I would have said that there's a lot of the hottest seat in the Padres household belongs to AJ Preller because of all the money they was spent, and things didn't work out. And how come you couldn't get the manager right? But I think that last year going to the postseason and being able to go ahead and adjust some of that payroll has taken the heat off of him. It buys him some time. A lot of goodwill for that. So I think the heat is off him. But if the Padres struggle this year, and I do believe the division has gotten a lot better. It's not just the Dodgers, right? Arizona has strengthened. There's Buster Posey. Buster Posey, that's crazy. Buster Posey in charge with the Giants, and the Rockies are what they are. But I think it's a much tougher division. But the Padres still have a lot of talent, so there's goodwill, and at least for now. I mean, if you're AJ Preller, how many more managers can you? This is it. They have to. This is a relationship. They have found each other. This is the soulmate relationship. So. Hopefully it works.
I mean, it has to work, right? At this point, they have no choice but for it to work.
Right.
You spoke with Ruben.
I'm sorry, really quick. And their contracts are meshed together, right? The extension that they give Mike Shildt, that's going to run to that coincides with the timing of what AJ Preller has left. And also, if you're, with John Seidler in charge, I think John Seidler is going to be in charge, or whoever's in charge. I think right now, at least for right now, continuity is important at the top until you figure out what's going to happen long term with this Padres team, which I still think is something very important to pay attention to.
All right. I had other baseball questions, but you mentioned John Seidler. Who knows? I mean, do you have any idea when he's going to talk? I mean, obviously, he's got to get through his 30-day, whatever it is. He becomes a trustee. My understanding is once that happens, we'll have a chance to hear from him, whether that's in Peoria. They should still be in Peoria once that happens. Whether they do that address there or wait until they're back in San Diego is to be determined. But if Marty Caswell is there, like she often is, asking the tough questions, what is the one question you would want to ask John Seidler?
I was just going to ask you that question, and I think maybe it's probably a question that I presented to Eric Grouper when I was there, when he was part of the address to the team. Like, can you guarantee the team won't be sold? And can you guarantee it? Because we know what's happened in the past when the Padres have been sold, man. It's the fans that ultimately pay the price. And I know Eric said that I've been told several times that they are not for sale.
Yeah.
The fact that he's been told that several times makes me wonder, well, how many times have you had to ask this question? And how do we know for sure? How do we know for sure? So I think the immediate long-term future of this team is the biggest thing. Do you plan to bring in some partners? August, stay in the house, please. Will you sell
Come on, August, get it together.
Will you sell a majority stake? What's going to happen right now with them being sold? Like, I know what Shildt had written in that letter, and the possibility of being relocated, and that was not going to happen. But I do really think that the talk of them being sold has been something real to pay attention to. And I also want to know, and that's where I would start. That's where I would start. I won't get into the lawsuit stuff because people aren't. That's not why we're fans. Right?
No, and like, what can we really do about any of these things? It's just going to play out the way that it plays out. But I think, also, there's been a lot of lip service about them continuing the path that Peter Seidler set them out on. I think just getting to the heart of that and John Seidler's vision for this team, level of investment, all those things as it pertains to winning a championship and being able to foot the type of bill that Peter has foot in the past and stay where they are payroll wise, if not, at a greater level. I think that's really important too.
The question I would ask, and I don't want to go ahead and give my questions right now because then they have time to prepare for the answer, because there's no doubt they're watching this podcast. But I would say if Peter Seidler were here, would he have signed Jackson Merrill by now? Because that report, I think it was Dennis Lin of The Athletic, came out with a report that the Padres had approached they had approached Jackson Merrill before he ever had a single at bat in the bigs on an extension, and he said no. And you think about the way that Peter got things done, like with Tatis. Would that have happened? The fact that we're hearing about trading Michael King or trading Dylan Cease, it's just not something that would have been part of Peter's DNA. So what's the plan for now?
Yeah. Along those lines, Petey chiming in. Does Marty have any feel for what the Jose Iglesias signing foreshadows? Any blockbuster trades, Blue Jays Cease and Crony for Vladdy? Interesting.
Come on. Who says no to that? Crony for Vladdy. My focus is to get through this season, assuming Iglesias makes the team and not call him Enrique. I have had such a problem with that since the signing was announced. Every time I see his name, I think Enrique Iglesias. And I know it's going to mess me up. I'm sorry. I'm kind of all over the place right now. Darnay, you had asked me what jumped out at me about spring training. And just because you brought up Enrique Iglesias, my thing is this. All right, because you put him in the conversation with Jason Hayward and with the Connor Joes and Gurriel,
the veterans,
the veterans who are trying to make this roster. Whichever combo they choose, as long as they're more productive than Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz were a couple years ago, then the Padres are in a much better position. That to me is going to be the big thing, because. Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question? I'm getting distracted by my nephew.
And that was the difference between 2023 and 2024. 2023, those guys were a disaster. 2024, Donovan Solano and David Peralta were godsends. And AJ even said, we need some surprises. And they have a really interesting collection of guys who could surprise them, both young and old. Because, like you said, the Haywards, the Connor Joes, Yuli Gurriel, now Jose Iglesias coming off a really good season. Seems like a competitive guy, but like a good culture clubhouse guy as well. So you got the veterans on one side, but then you have Tirso Ornelas and Eggy Rosario and Oscar Gonzalez, all these guys that have a chance to make the roster. Tirso having a really good spring. Eggy homered again today. So it's I'm really intrigued by this collection of guys, both
Me
young
too.
and old, to factor into outfield, to factor into potentially DH somewhere in the infield. Also, Iglesias, like, what does that mean for a Tyler Wade? Potentially, what does that
Right.
mean for a Jake Cronenworth? I mean,
Right.
that opens up like maybe some trade possibilities. So it's really interesting.
Well, think about the deals that Preller made last season. They were not part of this team by this time last year, right? Dylan Cease was right before they boarded that flight to Korea, and Arias came during the season. So I don't think, if I'm one of those players that you mentioned like a Jake Cronenworth, I I don't.
We got a special guest on this edition. That's fine. No, this is good.
That's Mr. Darnay. What are you doing? His favorite player is Jackson Mio. Give me the remote control. But I don't think that this team is set. It would not shock me if there's another trade. I would be shocked if they did trade.
Is it ever set, Marty? Is an AJ Preller team ever set?
It's never set. But I'll tell you this: if I'm like John Seidler or whoever is the control person, I do not want any of my star players traded. Like I would not want Dylan Cease moved before I have a chance to go ahead and address the San Diego media and the San Diego fans and talk about how committed I am to Peter Seidler's vision and winning. Because I don't know how you can pack the house at Petco Park all these different years, have all these sellouts, and talk about honoring Peter Seidler. And I don't know how you can do that and then trade Dylan Cease, because no team that's serious about wanting to win, you don't trade a guy like that. So I can't.
It would be tough messaging for sure, especially when he's certainly going to face some maybe skepticism, just people getting to know the guy, some of kind of the disappointment in how things have gone, the Shildt Seidler aspect. I mean, he's got a lot that he's going to be facing. And so you're absolutely right to then deal a guy like that and then make it look like you're less committed to. And that's why I think like getting Pivetta was huge. It seemed to round out the roster. Obviously huge for the rotation, in turn the bullpen as well, and just the messaging to the clubhouse and to the franchise. I think you could get away with like a Robert Suarez trade. You can maybe get away with a Jake Cronenworth trade without setting off any alarms or having to worry about the line of questioning once you get in front of Marty Caswell. But I think you're absolutely right to swing a Cease or a King or a Rise deal all of a sudden when you're already walking into a tense situation and make it even more difficult.
If you are serious about contending and serious about winning, you do not trade your ace. You just don't do that. So I think the idea of trading Dylan Cease would be just, that would be insane.
Christopher wants to know about the chemistry in the clubhouse this spring compared to last, especially without Profar.
It's really good.
Is Iglesias a guy that can bring some of those Profar vibes as well? I think Kevin Acee did a piece about how Tyler Wade can kind of pick up some of the slack. But what did you glean? You were there before the Iglesias deal, but what did you glean just in terms of the overall feel within the clubhouse?
These guys get along. It's still a tight clubhouse. All these players were asked about Profar being gone. I thought Jackson Merrill said that. Listen, we know who's gone, but we believe with the guys here, we're tight. And you watch them out there visibly, out, playing together on the dugouts in the clubhouse. You can see it's a tight group, and they all talked about how tight they were during the last regular season, and the guys they have brought in are only going to complement it. Now, you can like Jason Hayward. I would want him to make this team just because of what an incredible clubhouse guy. Rave reviews from guys in there. He and Jake Cronenworth worked out together in the offseason. I think they live close to each other, so that would be nice. But it's still a really tight group. I think a lot of guys grew up in that clubhouse that needed to this past year. We saw a lot of results. So I'm not worried at all. The chemistry is really, really good. Tight rotation. The guys in that pitching staff, very, very tight. It's a good group. It's a good group.
You also spoke with Campy, right?
I did. Yes. New batting stance.
What'd you take away from that interaction? Because it's obviously a huge year for him, and if he's able to take a step, that's enormous for the Padres. It's
a huge year. He trained again. He stayed in San Diego during the off season. He was around the pitching staff. He has a new batting stance, and he said that yes, losing his job to Kyle Higashioka, it did bother him, and I think he's looking at this as a last opportunity with the Padres. He wants that chance. Now, he and Ethan Salas get along. We know who the catcher of the future is, but I think Campy is really embracing the opportunity to go ahead and be that guy. So he said all the right things, but then again, he said all the right things the previous year. But that job was his to lose last year. I don't think any of us were expecting Higgy to get the amount of playing time that he did. Yeah. But like Campy said, man, it's like, hey, they gave him that chance and he seized it, and it's something that I have to do now. So he's better shape too. He's much better shape than like.
We are 3 weeks. Is it exactly 3? Is it the 28th or is it the 27th? Oh,
yeah, week from 6th. 3 weeks from tomorrow, Darnay.
3 weeks from tomorrow.
Wait.
I'm just on a Friday opening day?
No, it's a Thursday. 3 weeks from today.
3 weeks from today. Crazy. Yes, the 27th. For some reason, I had the 28th in mind. But yes, 27th, 3 weeks from today. Wow. So we are fast approaching. So we'll get you out on this, Marty. What is the biggest storyline question that you'll be player that you'll be following, curious about in the 3 weeks ahead?
The biggest storyline.
Other than August.
The biggest storyline is still the starting pitching, because you can't have enough starting pitching. So figuring out who's in the equation for the number 5 spot. I mean, it might be Stephen Kolek. It just how optimistic.
Seems like they want it to be.
I think they do want it to be Stephen Kolek. I mean, they say all the right things about Matt Waldron. It seems like right now he might have more value in the long relief role. That Brian Hoeing was absorbing, but pitching is still the biggest deal because you can't have enough. You just can't have enough pitching.
Never.
And
who's August's favorite player? Jackson Merrill, right?
Oh, it's Jackson Merrill. After I finally invested in a Manny Machado jersey for him, just like that, done with Manny, he wants Jackson Merrill.
So he's not even like second on the list. He's just all in on Jackson Merrill all the time.
No, all Jackson Merrill. What kid isn't? What kid isn't?
That's true.
Remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great pick. Great pick by August. They're not there yet. They're not. We got to get them to a game. I've been wanting to get them to a game. It's the schedule and all this. I keep wanting. I got to get to one of these Wednesday afternoon games with them because it's long overdue. I wanted to do it all season last year, and last year was just a crazy year. So that's the goal, to get them to a Padres game, maybe San Diego FC, maybe a wave match. I need to get them out a little bit more into my world, because Lord knows I spend plenty of time in their world.
Yeah.
Marty, you're the best. Thanks for doing this.
Darnay, thanks for putting up with me. I am so sorry for taking. Wait, did I write notes down? No, I have all my notes. I wrote notes down, so I didn't miss on something.
Do you miss it? You get everything?
I think I got. Yeah, I think. If not, I'll go ahead and I'll dial you back up.
We'll make it happen again.
Tatis. Yeah, we're good. We're all good.
What are you and August going to do when we let you go?
It's supposed to rain. We're going to go outside. We're going to go outside, go see the bay. Go see if the macaws are still across the street in the tree.
Yeah.
So by the way, just a reminder, thanks for mentioning the Ted Lightner video, the tribute video. If you guys get a chance to watch it on my channel, I would love that.
I'm looking forward to checking that out myself. Marty, great to catch up with you. Great to see you out there doing your thing, and look forward to catching up in person, hopefully before too long.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marty.
Bye.